Hello and welcome to the 16th Busiversary of the Flying Focus Video Bus. My name is PC Peri and I'm a member of the Flying Focus Video Collective. And we've been doing this work since 1991 at the beginning of the massacre in the Middle East called the Gulf War.
And it was November 18th of 1991 when the first episode of the Flying Focus Video Bus was cablecast. And last year we celebrated our 15th anniversary.
This year, Flying Focus Video Bus turns 16, and we're in new time slot on Monday, between Monday and Tuesday at 12:30 a.m. But the Wednesday at 11 p.m. and the Friday at 9:30 p.m., those slots will stay the same for now.
But tonight we're going to have producers and videographers come out in front of the camera to talk to you about 14 shows that we did this year that were made up of 24 different episodes. And we produced them between November of 2006 and November of 2007. And we'll be showing you some short clips from those episodes.
Some of these clips are available on the internet at www.flyingfocus.org. This year I taped 9 out of 14 of the shows that you're about to see.
And if you want to get involved and tape some shows with us, our phone numbers are 503-239-7456 and 503-321-5051, or you can write to us at FFVC@flyingfocus.org.
But whatever you do, get active on the camera.
Hi, I'm Dan Handelman, and this year I produced 5 shows on my own and co-produced 1 show. The first 3 shows are all about Middle Eastern issues. And 1 was about Iraq and 2 are about Iran. The Iraq show was taped on the 4-year anniversary of the invasion and occupation. Another group that I work with called Peace and Justice Works coordinated a variety of speakers to speak about the so-called war, the erosion of our civil liberties, and funding for domestic human needs and U.S. policy regarding Israel, Palestine, Afghanistan, and Iran. PC taped some of the footage for this, and so did Joe Anybody, who volunteered for the first time this year.
I'm Joe Anybody. I'm an independent media film videographer. There were some speeches at Terry Shrunk Plaza, and I gave up my lunch to go down and film those speeches because I felt it was important to get that word out to the community.
Interspersed throughout the show are images of messages to the Iraqi people, which were taped from the top of a scissor lift from volunteer Stephen McDonnell. I think there's a feeling of helplessness among the majority of Americans who really want to see the troops come home. But nobody in the government is taking aggressive steps to make that happen. And that's one of the reasons I thought it was important to put this show on the air.
What is our character as a nation? Shall we as a nation stand for this torture? Do we choose to promote the mass of democracy throughout the world and call our sons and daughters to die on the streets of Baghdad and Fallujah and Ramallah, while at home we slowly attack our own Bill of Rights?
As Tom Chamberlain from the Oregon AFL-CIO said yesterday, it's working class people who are fighting the war, it's working class people who are dying. Of course, it's ordinary Iraqis who have suffered the most, but it's the sons and daughters of the U.S. working class who have been putting their bodies on the line to support this obscene policy.
So instead of using, monies to be able to deal with best practices, and best practices in education means that the smaller the classroom is, the more effective the teacher becomes. So instead of taking an opportunity right now to deal with that part, we are spending money to continue an occupation.
We're supposed to hate the North Koreans because they're totalitarian. The reason these categories that we're supposed to hate the North Koreans about are bunk largely has to do with lack of context. Let's see, which nation has 2.2 million people in the prison system? Which nation has 1 out of every 37 either in prison, on probation, or on parole? Why, that would be the United States. I call that a police state.
The United States is spending somewhere in the vicinity of $200 billion a year on the war in Iraq. That nearly 200,000 veterans sleep on the streets every night, and that according to the Department of Veterans Affairs, upwards towards 1,000 of them are Iraq war vets.
The next two shows were taped at an all-day forum held in late 2006, put on by the American-Iranian Friendship Council and other groups. The first one features author and scholar William Beeman, whose book on the Great Satan versus the Mad Mullahs exposes how America's government and mainstream press get just about everything wrong when they talk about Iran. The clips you're going to see show Beeman talking about Iran's nuclear program, which the U.S. actually supported in the 1970s, and he says does not pose a threat, as well as Iran's form of government, which people continually misrepresent as a dictatorship under the elected president Ahmadinejad. Beeman clarifies that it's actually the Ayatollahs in Iran who hold the real power.
Iran is a signatory, of course, to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The head of the Iranian Atomic Energy Commission, Gholam Reza Aghazadeh, the former head, reiterated that all of Iran's nuclear facilities have been open for inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency until the United Nations began to pressure Iran and threaten sanctions. And then Iran retreated to the specific requirements that were stated under the original Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Of course, Iran is developing these other facilities, the plant in Isfahan, the deuterium production plant in Natanz. These plants are entirely legal under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and they are entirely consistent with power generation. The important part of the Iranian government, the Iranian Islamic government, is that it's based on a fundamental principle of Shia Islam. And the fundamental principle of Shia Islam is the principle of the Velayat Faqih. And that is the regency of the chief jurisprudent. Now, without going into Shia theology, without going into Shia theology in great detail, I won't be able to explain this to you, except that the ruler, the spiritual leader of Iran, rules in the place of the hidden imam, the 12th imam, who is in occultation, and who will return at the end of the world in order to judge humanity, along with Jesus, by the way. But in Shia Islam, there's a system of grand ayatollahs who make judgments, who make ultimate judgments about the nature, the Islamic nature of laws that are passed and about officials who are allowed to serve the public. And in this regard, the government of Iran is fundamentally Islamic in a Shia sense. But I will tell you that every grand ayatollah, aside from Khomeini and his followers, has rejected the Velayat Faqih. One of the chief rejectionists is Ali al-Sistani, who is now the most revered grand ayatollah in Shiism. This is why Iraq will not have an Iranian-style theocracy.
This next piece is from the same event on Iran, but features a panel discussion with three people. The first person, Rostam Pourzal, is somewhat controversial in some circles for his stance that linking human rights issues to political issues can have unintended consequences. In other words, as bad as the Iranian government is, he does not believe that activists should allow the U.S. to use Iran's human rights record as an excuse for military intervention. Human rights advocate Sohaila Vadati, and I think I'm saying that right, notes that there is progress for women in Iran. At the same time, there are some horrible setbacks. And the Oregon writer known as Polo reminisces about his time in Iran during the 1979 revolution. At the time we're taping the show, which is early November 2007, it looks like the U.S. is lined up and ready to launch some kind of military assault on the people of Iran. We're hoping that getting this information out there will help prevent such a debacle.
In Iran, if we have a government that is obnoxious or not good for human rights, doesn't allow political competition and so on, well, it's because we wouldn't have had a revolution, much less an Islamic revolution and mullahs in power, if Iran's major experiment with democracy between 1941 and 1952 was not overthrown by the CIA. So the root of today's problem, even if Iran were developing nuclear weapons or was actively supporting terrorism, is in an American action or in a foreign intervention.
You may see conflicting images regarding Iranian women. We have Shirin Ebadi, a Muslim woman from Iran, winning Nobel Peace Prize. We have Iranian women directing movies. and getting international attention and awards. Inside Iran, women are basically sweeping literature awards. On the other hand, we have high rate of suicide, self-immolation, unfortunately, among Iranian women. We have Iranian women being stoned to death for adultery. So I'm trying to open it up a little and see what's going on, to give you a close-up image.
And it was a third of those mistakes that I think we continue to make when we send our young men and young women overseas. 300,000, I don't know, 150,000, whoever, sitting out there now in the Emerald City, occasionally going out on patrols and possibly dying before they come back. There's an irresistibility of a Western icon like Winston Churchill. There's, secondly, the simplicity of demonizing people like mullahs, like folks who are crazy because they are irrational. And thirdly, the asymmetry of the struggle is just something I think with our Western productive power we will never quite understand and then never quite win. Because you can rub them out. Go ahead. The next generation will do the same thing.
PC Peri here. I want to bring you Barb, and we're going to talk about Iran from a more personal perspective. What kind of things did we do this time?
In this program, we went out to the, I think it was the 7th annual Iranian Festival.
Right.
And interviewed some folks from Iran.
Outside in the park blocks.
Exactly. And there are also folks, those are people from Iran. There are also folks in this show who are from America and went over to visit Iran. And we wanted to give a little more personal face to the people of that country while our government is trying to make them out to be villains.
Oh, I miss Iran a lot. As you see in this magazine, it says, every place of Iran is my home. I love Iran, and I wish some of these days, very soon, the regime is changed, but not by bombing them. I pray for Iranian people have peace and freedom.
We met with the Women's Environmental Society that has 5,000 members. We stayed in first-class hotels. We drank the tap water. We ate like pigs. We found out how well-informed the people are. Satellite dishes are illegal, but about 30% of the people have them. Internet access is easy, and Farsi is the third most prevalent language spoken in the blogosphere. People have cell phones. Our trip leaders were getting calls daily from the States. 4 daily newspapers are printed in English in Tehran. Education for boys and girls is mandatory from the ages of 7 to 15. And some of the young people I've spoken with are very dismayed to hear all the kids go to school 6 days a week. English and Arabic are taught in the schools. Women constitute 60% of the university students and are active in all facets of civil life. Improvements can be made for women's rights and for the persecuted Baha'is. But this is a problem for the Iranians to solve themselves, in my opinion. The cities we were visited were on par with any city in Europe. Isfahan is especially beautiful. Iran is not a third world country. It has sound infrastructure with good highways and high-rise buildings in the cities. Tehran is at 4,000 feet with mountains surrounding it, and it snows there in the winter. People ski in the mountains, both men and women.
Yvonne Simmons is joining us now to talk about the next clip. Yvonne's been with Flying Focus for many, many years. So Yvonne, what's this one about?
Well, last year there was the International Executive Committee of Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in London. And there were women from our Middle East sections. And as I work on things to do with the Middle East, I interviewed the women. And in the clips you can see Hanan Awad, who is our Palestinian section president, talking about how the resolution, the Middle East resolution of the Israeli occupation of Palestine, and also Daphne Ward for the Israeli section.
Violence breeds violence. Extremism breeds extremism. But I'm afraid that if Israel continues to practice this policy of violence inside the Middle East, the whole Middle East, with the help of Iran, will turn to be Islamic fundamentalism. And to tell you the truth, I'm not ready to wear the veil.
I would like to put pressure on the government, on Bush, if it's possible, to stop supporting Israel, to stop helping Israel, to stop pushing Israel, to stop supporting both financially and politically the policy of Israel, the occupation.
Now here I'm standing with my college degree, and my own kids have more options than Nana could foresee. But if you think we're satisfied, take a look around. There's a lot of angry women, won't let their nanas down. Nanas suffragettes.
What went on at this IEC, I saw a lot of dynamics taking place where people were connecting with each other, and that was really, really valuable, because that's what keeps this organization together, is face-to-face interaction. And if we're sitting in just a plenary all day or most of the day, we don't have time to find out the individual stories, because the women here had so many stories from Sri Lanka, Belarus, Palestine, Nepal, India. Each one has their own story, including the women from the United States.
I came first to represent the women in my country and to express the unjust situation that Palestinian women in particular and the Palestinian people in general are living. And also I come here to discuss the pains and worries and the situation of other women in different parts of the world.
So Yvonne, what's this next show about?
It's Faslane 365, which means 365 days of protest outside Glasgow in Scotland at the Trident missile facility, because Britain wants to renew their Trident missiles, which of course are all the parts come from the US. And this shows interviews with the woman Rebecca Johnson, who is part of the steering committee for 365 Faslane. And the first 3 days when I was there were for the women, Green and Common women, WILPF women, women in black women. And it was quite incredible. People got arrested, and women got arrested, I should say.
Over the last 3 days, Green and Women and Women in Black have been demonstrating and blockading at the Faslane nuclear submarine base where Trident is deployed.
Yeah, and I heard you got arrested.
Yes, yesterday. As I was getting up and having my breakfast and preparing what I was going to be planning to do, I was crossing the road because I had camped right by the gate, although they'd said we couldn't. Some of us had managed to sleep right up by the gate. And as I was crossing over to my tent holding a cup of cocoa, I was rudely arrested, and an offence was created of breach of the peace in possession of a cup of cocoa.
Extra meetings as well.
When you're having things like this.
Extracurricular activities. But that's the general every Wednesday.
Well, this is a demonstration which is just the beginning of something we hope will go on for a whole year, with different groups coming to protest against the renewal of nuclear weapons, particularly the nuclear warheads which will go into the Trident submarines. And what interests me here is that we're a group of women, specifically. I'm sure others will talk to you about Trident and the warheads. You know, Trident, nuclear weapons are the most destructive and violent things on Earth. And the thing about our demonstration is that it's completely peaceful and good-natured, and using all sorts of human and creative ways to draw attention to this kind of deathliness of state policy.
Hi, I'm PC Peri here with Dave Hall, and we've been doing some work on interviews. Could you remind me what it was that we were doing?
Yeah, well first, thank you for your help with this project, PC.
Thank you for the opportunity.
The piece that we produced, Native Perspectives on Sustainability with Nicole Maher, is one of a series of interviews that have been conducted with Indigenous leaders within the bioregion defined by the Pacific Salmon Runs, otherwise known as Salmon Nation. And these interviews seek to contribute to and deepen the dialogue around the conversations of sustainability that are occurring at local, national, and international levels. And specifically, the interviews cover ground from who the people are, a bit about their background and the communities that they identify with. And from there, we discuss the concept sustainability and what it means. Once we have an idea of their thinking on the concept of sustainability, we cover their vision of sustainability for their communities. And from there, we talk about the kinds of actions and strategies that need to be taken from this day forward to bring about a sustainable future. And today, as you know, are critical times, and if we choose to take the path towards sustainability, the value of bringing Indigenous voices to the table really can't be overstated.
When I think about sustainability, what comes to mind is our individual and our collective consciousness that our resources and our land and our time here on this earth don't necessarily belong to us. It belongs to our children and our children's children, and it's really that consciousness and that thought of being stewards of whatever that resource is, be it our culture, be it our values, be it our environment, be it the land. Those are all resources that we have, and how do we protect it and sustain it for our children's children. I think a lot of times when we think about sustainability, it's about the things we're doing wrong or the things that we're not being conscious of or mistakes that we're making. And I really like this idea of cultural sustainability and really focusing on the gifts and the strengths and the values and the beliefs that we have and carrying that forward. And I think that particularly in the Native community, a lot of our culture and beliefs and values naturally support a lot of other behaviors, such as conservation, such as environmental consciousness, all of those pieces. And so what I think a lot about is how do we sustain our culture, how do we sustain our values, how do we ensure that our children have a strong sense of who they are and what their responsibilities are. How do we make sure that our children know that they're our future leaders? How do we make sure they have the tools to be those leaders? How do we make sure that they know that they belong to our community, that we want them, that we need them, and what do they need to do as a result of their important role in our society?
Oh, that does it for part 1 of the 16th Busiversary. If you want to get involved in Flying Focus Video Collective at all, please call us at 503-239-7456 and check for show times at 503-321-5051. Or you can write to us at Flying Focus Video Collective, FFVC, at flyingfocus.org.
People often ask where we get our funding and whether we get grants. The answer is that the majority of our funding comes from donations and tape orders from individuals just like you. We also have to thank Portland Community Media, who offer their facilities for free to anyone so long as you air your programming on their channels. Our work is done by volunteers, and so we could definitely use your help.
Thanks for watching, and tune in this time next week for the part 2.
So, you know, this is great. It's the 16th time we've done an anniversary show about Flying Focus. Showing the clips that we've done every year about our peace issues and stuff like that.
Too bad we couldn't have had all of the 52 of whoever has been working with us any given year to come and be on the camera show.
52 people are producing?
No,
Something like that.
any one time we've had 52 people working with us. You know, so the group runs between 5 and 52 people.
So, let's see. Barb, what do you like best about Flying Focus?
What do I like about Flying Focus?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
I like that we give a different view from corporate mass media that you can't get anywhere else. In-depth coverage of important issues that don't whitewash what the government does. That's what I like. And corporate America. The military-industrial complex, you know.
What do you like most?
I like that it's people from around town getting involved in local and international issues, and then putting it together on TV.
You just lost your mic.
We have,
So,
got a mind of its
how long
own.
is that now?
That's exactly 90 seconds.